Howdy folks, welcome to the channel. Today we are going to recap I Am Legend, an American post-apocalyptic action thriller film based loosely on the 1954 novel, directed by Francis Lawrence. Here be spoilers, so viewers beware. At the beginning of the movie, we see a doctor being interviewed on TV. She boasts about a genetically designed virus that has cured cancer in every patient it has been tested on. 10,009 people have been treated with the virus so far, and all of them have been cured.
So you have actually cured cancer?
Yes, we have.
Cue to 3 years later, Manhattan, New York is deserted. The streets are filled with rusty cars. Not a single human being can be seen in an otherwise busy city. A sports car rushes in the empty streets. Inside are U.S. Army virologist Lieutenant Colonel Robert Neville and his dog, Sam. Robert has his rifle with him. He drives while talking to Sam when a herd of deer suddenly jumps in front of the car, almost crashing it. Robert chases the deer through the deserted streets. He tries to shoot one of them, but they run into a tunnel before he can. The deer manage to run away between a large traffic jam, leaving Robert's car behind. But Robert doesn't give up. He gets out of the car with the rifle and Sam and steps out to hunt the deer as he points his rifle at a deer. A lioness jumps at it, killing it before Robert can. A lion and its cub join the lioness. Just then, Robert notices that the sun is about to go down. He takes Sam and goes back to his Washington Square Park home. As it turns out, 3 years ago, in 2012, the measles virus was re-engineered genetically in an attempt to find a cure for cancer, and it worked to some extent. As mentioned in the beginning of the movie, it cured thousands of patients who had cancer. However, it soon became lethal. Within months, the mutilated virus infected 99% of the human population, killing most of them and turning the others into vampiric albino cannibalistic mutants called darkseekers. The darkseekers react negatively to light, hence they come out at night. Robert is the sole human survivor in New York City. He has been living in isolation for 3 years now. His only companion is his dog, Sam. That day, when he comes back home, he pours acid in the entrance. He has a lot of food and supplies stocked up at his house. Like always, Robert cooks food for himself and Sam. His only friend who he talks to reduce his loneliness is his dog.
No. Eat your vegetables. Don't just push them around. Eat them. I'm not playing.
He also plays several film recordings on the TV to cope with the isolation. That day, as he bathes Sam, Robert's alarm goes off. He suddenly freezes and stares into nothing. He doesn't hear Sam bark. The alarm repeatedly rings when suddenly he snaps out of it. The sun is setting. Robert closes every door and window in the house. The house is highly protected from darkseekers that come out during the night. The two sleep in the bathtub. Robert has his rifle with him for protection. He reminisces of the night the outbreak occurred. 3 years ago, he was rushed to his home by soldiers to get his wife Zoe and daughter Marley. It was Christmas Eve, but the family had to evacuate the city as soon as possible. The family gets in the car along with Sam. Zoe is extremely confused. They are going to her sister Sarah's house. Marley, from the back seat, complains about not wanting to go there. The streets are busy with people trying to run away, too. The island will be locked down in 30 minutes. Robert, being a virologist who can potentially find the cure, has to stay in the city. Zoe tries to convince him to come with them. Just then, a man crashes into the car's window. Marley screams in fear. Robert wakes up realizing that he was dreaming. Sam sleeps on top of him. As usual, the two exercise together in the morning. Then Robert goes into the lab in his basement. Sam isn't allowed to go in, so he sits outside waiting for Robert. In the lab, he records his findings for the day. Robert has been actively trying to prepare a cure for the virus for the last 3 years. Previously, he has injected several infected rats with different compounds. Today, he puts a webcam on his glasses and checks the effect of the compounds on the animal. Most of the rats are violent. He concludes that the results are typical. Some of them are dead, too. However, one of the rats seems to be normal. Surprised, he concludes that Compound 6 can likely be a cure to the virus. Next, he has to test the compound on an infected human, one of the darkseekers. Like every day, Robert takes his rifle and goes out with Sam to collect supplies. He first goes into a recording store. He has placed several mannequins there to make him feel like he's not alone. He talks to the mannequins like they're his friends.
Morning, Hank. Midway through the G's.
He collects some videotapes from there and goes to a random apartment to collect food and other supplies. The place is a mess. Robert looks around it but only finds a can of red salmon and a bottle of alcohol. Then, the two move to the South Street seaport. Robert has been continuously radio broadcasting recorded audio of him calling for any survivors to meet him at midday at the South Street seaport. He promises to provide food, shelter, and security. It has been 3 years, and no survivors have responded yet, but he still has hope. That day, too, he drives to the South Street seaport, but no one else is there except for him and Sam. While they are there, they see a deer running in the streets. The two chase it, but the deer enters a secluded dark area, and Sam follows it. Robert yells at Sam to stop and runs to save her. As Robert goes further into the building, a loud screeching startles him. The building is infested by darkseekers. He comes across a pool of blood and sees that something has been dragged to the second floor. Gathering much courage, Robert climbs upstairs. He sees that the deer is dead. He finally finds Sam hiding under a table. She looks scared and doesn't want to come out. Just then, a darkseeker attacks him. He shoots him and starts to run away with Sam, but several darkseekers follow them. Sam gets away through a hole in the building, while Robert jumps out of the glass window, taking a darkseeker with him. As soon as it is out in the sunlight, the darkseeker struggles and dies. The following day, Robert sets up a snare trap in the building's entrance to capture one of them. He needs them for his study of the cure. He then sets Sam in the car and tells her to run away if he doesn't come back. He goes back to the building and lures the darkseekers to the trap with his blood. He successfully manages to get a female darkseeker trapped. However, seeing the female captured, one of the males does something very unusual. He almost rushes out of the building, even though the sunlight burns his face. Robert takes the female to his lab and injects her with sedatives. He also ties her hands and legs to restrain her. He notes her vitals and notices a butterfly tattoo behind her ear while doing so. Robert then finally injects her with Compound 6. However, her breathing starts to slow and her pulse starts to drop. Suddenly, she wakes up and tries to free herself violently. Her pulse goes to 0. Robert, disheartened, concludes that Compound 6 is ineffective on humans. He then injects her with a compound that brings her pulse back and locks her body in a glass cell. He goes upstairs and records his findings. Robert reminisces of the last day with his family together. The whole city was in chaos. Streets were jammed with cars wanting to drive out of the city. However, only the non-infected people were allowed to cross the border. The soldiers scan Robert and his family and let him and his daughter pass. But Zoe's scan comes out negative. Robert has to fight the soldiers to scan her again, after which she is declared not infected. A mother cries to Robert to take her daughter with him, but he takes his family and leaves. Marley hands him Sam to protect him before boarding the helicopter. That was the family's last goodbye. The next day, Robert realizes that it's his birthday. Like every day, he and Sam go to the South Street seaport. While they are returning home, Robert sees one of the mannequins he had placed in the video store stand outside Grand Central Terminal. He is beyond surprised.
What the hell are you doing out here, Fred?
He yells at the mannequins and asks how he got there. Agitated, he shoots it with his rifle.
Damn it, Fred!
Just then, he steps on a trap similar to the one he has set for the female darkseekers earlier. He hangs upside down and hits his head on the process and falls unconscious. When he wakes up, it is almost nighttime. Sam barks at him from below. He uses a knife and frees himself but gets hurt when he falls. Just then, several darkseeker dogs attack the two. Sam saves Robert from getting bitten. Robert shoots the dogs dead, but they have already bitten Sam and infected her. He takes her home and injects her with a compound. Robert lovingly sings Sam a song, but she has started to turn into a Darkseeker. With no other way out, he strangles her to death. The following day, he buries her. Robert's only friend in isolation is gone. Agitated and out of his mind, he goes outside at night the following day. He intends to kill every Darkseeker he gets his hands on. He takes his vehicle and calls on them. A crowd of Darkseekers attack a mannequin, thinking it is him. Robert attacks them from behind with his vehicle and runs over most of them. But soon they outnumber him. The group of Darkseekers seems to have a leader. The Alpha attacks Robert. They manhandle the car as he tries to run away. Eventually, they push the car over. Robert cannot get out now. The Alpha comes right before Robert and is almost about to kill him, when suddenly, someone flashes lights towards them. The Darkseekers run away. Robert is only half conscious when he feels someone dragging him. He hears noises but cannot comprehend what is happening. Someone asks him for his home address. He subconsciously tells them the address and asks them not to let the Darkseekers follow. We again get a glimpse of what happened to Robert's family after he said goodbye to them. As Zoe and Marley boarded the helicopter, people started getting violent. Another chopper crashed into theirs, killing Robert's family in front of him. The following day, Robert wakes up on his living room couch. Someone has stitched his injury. He goes into the kitchen to see a woman and a kid having breakfast. The woman introduces herself as Anna, and the kid's name is Ethan. They talk over breakfast. Anna tells him that she and Ethan are survivors of the Red Cross evacuation ship. They are from Sao Paulo and are making their way to a survivors' camp in Bethel, Vermont. Robert insists that there are no survivors left. When Anna tells him that there are, he loses control and throws the plate to the wall. He apologizes and goes back to his room. He wakes up later to Ethan watching Shrek on TV. He thanks Anna for saving him. The two talk and Anna asks him to come with them. But Robert insists that Manhattan is ground zero and that he doesn't want to leave. He wants to find the cure and fix everything. Later, they go to inspect the trap Darkseekers had set the other day. Robert is surprised because he didn't think the creatures were capable of recreating his trap. Robert suddenly realizes that the reason Compound 6 doesn't work on the female Darkseeker might be because it only works in lower temperatures. So that night, he lays her on ice. Anna visits him in the lab and is surprised to see the creature still there. She sees pictures of several other Darkseekers on Robert's wall. They are the ones he has killed while experimenting. He doesn't feel sorry for them. Later, the two put Ethan to bed in Marley's old room. The sun is almost about to set, so Robert goes around the house to lock the doors and windows. Meanwhile, Anna tries to convince him to come to the survivors' camp with them. But Robert still doesn't acknowledge that a group of survivors exists.
Every single person that you or I has ever known is dead!
Just then, they hear noises from outside. Robert checks to see a huge group of Darkseekers running towards the house. They had followed them last night. Anna rushes to get Ethan. Robert has set explosives outside the house as a defense. He presses a button and explodes them all. Many Darkseekers die in the explosions. He goes up to check on Anna and Ethan when suddenly he is attacked by the same Alpha Darkseeker again. The two fight and Robert manages to chase him outside. He goes up to see Anna and Ethan hiding under the table while a Darkseeker is on the ceiling. He kills it and brings the two down to the basement. Another crowd of Darkseekers is outside the house, ready to attack them. Anna, Robert, and Ethan are inside the cell with the female Darkseeker. They realize that the cure is starting to work, but there is no way out for them. Just then, Robert extracts some of the female's blood. He puts Ethan and Anna in a coal chute inside the lab and hands Anna the blood. Robert has decided to sacrifice himself to save Anna, Ethan, and the cure. He then takes a grenade from the back of a drawer and kills the Darkseekers at the cost of his own life. The movie ends as we see Anna and Ethan reaching the surviving colony and hand the officials the cure. Alternate ending. The three lock themselves inside the glass cell with the female Darkseeker. They realize the cure is starting to work. Just then, the basement fills with Darkseekers. The alpha sees the female lying on the bed and starts to break the glass cell. The other dark seekers obey whatever the alpha says. The alpha then creates a butterfly on the glass. Robert realizes that he is referring to the female's tattoo and is here to get her. Seeing the alpha's love for his partner, Robert realizes that the real monster in the story is actually him, who uses these creatures as mere subjects for his experiments. Robert puts his gun down and takes the wires off the female. He then asks Anna to open the door for him. Anna hesitates but obliges. The other Darkseekers start making noise but go silent once the alpha screams. Robert then brings out the female and she and the alpha reunite. Anna quickly closes the door. The alpha takes the female and leaves with the others. Anna and Robert finally sigh in relief. The next morning, they pack the essentials and leave for the survivor camp in the north. Anna leaves a recorded radio broadcast for anyone who listens about the survivor camp. The movie ends as she narrates, "You are not alone." Now for the explanation of the movie. In 2012, in an attempt to cure cancer, some researchers re-engineered the measles virus genetically and created a mutilated virus. They tested the virus on animals and then gradually on humans, and it seemed like a huge success. Thousands of patients who have cancer were cured, or so it seemed. Soon, the side effects of the virus started to take over, killing several people. Those who weren't killed got infected with such a deadly virus that made them vampiric albinos named Darkseekers. The Darkseekers infected some people and killed the rest. Only in a few months, 99% of the human population was wiped out. The only human-like creatures left were the Darkseekers who came out at night and were highly vulnerable to light. However, in Manhattan, New York, U.S. Army virologist Lieutenant Colonel Robert Neville and his dog Sam managed to survive. For 3 years, they lived an isolated life in New York City. The movie shows us how the otherwise bustling New York City could look void of humans. Robert and Sam lived a normal life, collecting food and supplies during the day and hiding at night when the Darkseekers are set free. Robert also worked hard to search for a cure for the virus. He captured several Darkseekers and tested many compounds on them. However, he lost his only companion, Sam, to the Darkseekers. This was his last straw. He put his life in danger for no other motive but to kill the creatures who killed Sam. Soon, Robert united with 2 humans after all these years of isolation. Anna and her son Ethan managed to survive the virus too. They had been hiding in a Red Cross evacuation ship in Sao Paulo. Anna knew about a survivors camp in Bethel, Vermont, hence the 2 were headed there. The female Darkseeker who Robert had previously captured turned out to be a special person to the Darkseekers Alpha. So much so that the Alpha gathered a whole city of his kind and brought them to rescue the female. Robert, Anna, and Ethan were attacked by the creatures. However, at the last moment, Robert realized that the compound he had injected the female with had worked. They finally had the cure, but were surrounded by blood-hungry Darkseekers. The story goes 2 days from here. In the first way, Robert sacrificed his life to save humanity. He handed Anna the cure and made her and Ethan flee. While he killed all the Darkseekers along with himself in an explosion, Anna and Ethan successfully managed to reach the survivors' colony and hand the cure to the officials. However, in the second ending, Robert handed the female Darkseeker to the Alpha, and the Alpha let them free. The 3 of them then left for the survivors' camp. Although the movie came out back in 2007, fans have not stopped talking about the movie to date. The 2 endings spiked everyone's interest as they can choose which one they like the most. 90% of I Am Legend fans will tell you that they like the alternate ending better than the theatrical ending. The fans have also created their own theories. 1. Robert being the monster. Some fans believe that the real monster in the movie is Robert himself. Darkseekers have been shown as blood-hungry monsters throughout the movie, but at the end of the alternate ending, see that Robert was the one who used them for his own good. He used the Darkseekers as his test experiments. So, when we see the Alpha and the female reunite at the end, they seem more human than Robert. 2. Who was the vaccine for? As Anna tries to tell Robert about the survivors' camp, he flips out on her, insisting that no human is alive. If he firmly believes he is the last healthy man on Earth, who is the vaccine for? Some fans believe it is just for himself. However, it is frequently mentioned in the movie that Robert is immune to the virus. He comes in close contact with Darkseekers on many occasions, but never gets infected. Others believe that the Darkseekers are human too. Robert is doing all of this to turn them back into humans. But if it is so, how does he plan to distribute the cure within the Darkseekers? He is the only person alive in between thousands of those creatures and cannot inject each and every one of them. 3. The Darkseekers already knew of Robert's location. Robert made sure to mention to Anna that the creatures do not know his location, even when he is lightheaded and almost dying. But the Darkseekers had set up a trap for him with the mannequin. If they didn't know his whereabouts, how did they manage to get the mannequin just where Robert would notice? Moreover, the creatures cannot come out during the day, but they have probably heard him hunt and drive around the city in the sports car. Moreover, for 3 years, Robert took the same route to the South Street Seaport. The Darkseekers must know the area he lives in. So, some fans believe that the infected knew where Robert lived and were perfectly willing to let him live. They were probably too afraid to confront him until he kidnapped the lover of the alpha male. Number 4. Is the movie related to COVID-19? In light of the outbreak of the recent coronavirus, many fans have speculated that the movie predicted the coronavirus outbreak. But their theory has to do more with the results of the COVID vaccines rather than the outbreak of the virus itself. Their theory concludes that since the premise of the movie was set in 2012, and the COVID-19 vaccine is being distributed in 2021, our results will be the same as that of the movie. In the movie, a virus given to people as a cure to cancer was responsible for the destruction of humanity. So some people have claimed that the same will happen as a result of COVID vaccines.